from reactive to proactive through the power of data analytics. We have a great mix of expertise from consulting and technology to academia to retail. My name is Melissa Runge. I am the Vice President of Client Implementation and Services at Transportation Insight and a member of the board for the Supply Chain Society at TAG. And now I will turn it over to our sponsor for a few words, Ortec.
Thank you, Melissa, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for organizing this panel discussion. Looking forward to great discussions here today. My name is Herman Wirenga. I'm the COO of Ortec Americas, and Ortec is the world's leading supplier of mathematical optimization software and advanced analytics, especially in supply chain and logistics. And I personally have been with Ortec working in the field of consultancy and optimization for nearly 20 years. And since 2019, I lead our operations in the US and the rest of the Americas. We have here 3 offices, around 100 employees, and I'm based out of Atlanta. And as a short introduction on who we are, we prepared a short video clip for you. And I think someone will start it right away now.
Who is Ortec? We are innovators. Growing your numbers to improve your business, having the right people to reinvent the wheel, making the world a better place for everyone and everything, creating groundbreaking new solutions for every industry. We are AI and data analytics, computing oceans of data to sharpen your view of the world, building the perfect pallet to fill your trucks with automation, mapping your world one route at a time to deliver products in the most efficient way, driving digitalization to achieve warehouse efficiency without human interaction. We are visionaries, developing new strategies to solve your greatest challenges in the supply chain, connecting your business to the cloud to meet the demands of inventory and scheduling, bringing the next great idea from the warehouse to your doorstep. We are your partner. We are data scientists using strategic insights for extracting information out of your data to create value and make better decisions. We are consultants lending a helping hand at 4 a.m. to get a project done on time. We have the technology and the power to improve the world one person, one company, one step at a time. We are Ortec.
Thank you, Herman and Ortec for sponsoring this event. We also have, in addition to Herman, Pascal Van Hentrick, who is the Associate Chair of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Georgia Tech. And we have Eric Laval, who is the Digital Supply Chain and Customer Experience Technology Portfolio Leader at T-Mobile. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Today, we'll be covering 4 topics. COVID-19 effects on data sources and data analytics, integrated solutions for complex supply chains, decision automation, and omnichannel capabilities. We'll leave time at the end for some questions. So if you have any questions as we go through the panelist reviews, we can ask those in the chat functionality at the end of the discussion. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So the first topic is COVID-19 effects on data sources and data analytics. So the world's still grappling with the effects of COVID-19. As we all know, after almost 2 years after coronavirus's first reported case, there have been many opportunities to realign with vaccines, variants, and other circumstances that are keeping organizations on their toes. But COVID-19 has been a major disruptor. And there are other disruptors that, like global warming, are reshaping how organizations act, react, and pre-act. So the first topic here we're going to discuss is COVID-19 and the effects of data sources and data analytics. And I'll kick it off with a question for Herman. How are firms using data and analytical tools to manage the volatility in the marketplace for forecasting and inventory management?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. Yeah, indeed, we have seen that, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, some companies, they really had to pivot or restructure the business model, or basically they would not survive. And we have seen, for instance, one of our customers is a large retailer, and they were delivering mostly to restaurants, and they shut all down at the lockdown virtually overnight. And they needed to reinvent their business model very quickly to a model where they would do home delivery. And what we helped them with, they already had the tools in place to do the data analytics and to have the software for optimization. But with having those tools in place, they could make the change very quickly and see immediately the effect. And I think actually before COVID, that trend already started. You mentioned some other parts outside of COVID that make society to need to be react more rapidly to the changing world, and also deal with uncertainties and complexities. And sophisticated analytics and optimization tools really help with that. And as an add-on for this specific case, for instance, what we do is not only helping a company optimizing their distribution to the home delivery, but also real-time analyze what is going on. For instance, if they have a certain address that is relatively expensive to serve from their central warehouse or central location, then they see that immediately and can change their operations the next day or even the same day to improve on that. So the so-called cost to serve gives direct feedback and immediately helps them improving their business.
Thanks, Herman. Eric, what are some of the sources that T-Mobile has used that may differ from what they've used in the past as leading indicators or just for data analytic purposes?
Sure. Thanks for that question, Melissa. And first, I wanted to echo a little bit what Herman said. The silver lining of COVID to me is that it has galvanized organizations to address things that perhaps were on their roadmap, but suddenly needed to be pulled to the forefront to deal with the volatility and chaos that was introduced by COVID. We certainly saw that. We were lucky that we had been investing in talent and bringing in data scientists who could look at the significant changes in data and then help us make the best decisions that we could. When we closed all of our stores early in the pandemic, we decided that we did not want to leave that high value inventory in position. So using some of our digital technologies, we were able to move all of that inventory back to our central distribution center relatively quickly. And then when we went to redeploy it, we did use additional data sources to help us make good decisions about where was best to deploy it. We were trying to predict difficult to understand future patterns of demand as we shifted to a different service model with curbside delivery and other capabilities that we had not had before. And so we were capturing that data, specific to your question, in some new cloud containers, because that was something that we hadn't anticipated having to do. And so we did create some special places to run the data through in addition, which provided access to our data scientists. And again, let them draw the insights that helped us manage our inventory better and hopefully serve our customers better. So I think that was one of the new ones. I think there was some attempts at bringing in social media and social data as well, sentiment, to understand which regions were responding well to the coronavirus, where would we expect to see more traffic in stores. and anticipate that. And again, that affected our inventory deployment. So those are a couple of examples of some additional data sources that we were able to use to help us with our business operations.
Pascal, do you have any insight from an innovation perspective from Georgia Tech? What are some things that you guys have been looking at as leading indicators or predictive analytics related to data sources and data analytics?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and I think I'm going to echo some of the things that Eric and Herman have said, and add a few ones. So I think the key point that I think Eric and Herman have made is the fact that COVID has accelerated a lot of changes that various companies wanted to make, and everybody is reconsidering how they have to organize their business, how to make it more resilient, how to make it more reactive, responsive. And that is, we have seen many examples of that in the collaborations that we had. People are saying, okay, so now is the time, we have to do something. We knew we had to do it, but now we really want to build the models to understand how we could do better. So you see a lot more companies saying, hey, let's model what the world could be if we change the system in this particular direction. Now, the other things, and I think both Eric and Herman have also mentioned this, is forecasting. A lot of people understand much better the value of forecasting, of using a lot of different data sources, and understanding the customers better, understanding how people are behaving, understanding how the various supply chains, the vulnerabilities of every one of this supply chain, where there is congestion. There is also something which is interesting. People now realize that they have also to understand what the competitors are doing, because they actually have the same suppliers. And so this creates a lot of interdependency. So I think one of the things that COVID has made is make a lot of different companies understand how the world is more global, and how there are more and more in their dependencies, and the need for having more resilience and more forecasting tools about what can happen. So that's and so I think it's across a variety of domains. And this is an interesting realization. And I think what people are realizing is that the tools that we are building can help them actually manage this uncertainty, this volatility, and this resilient issue much better.
Thank you, Pascal. And so with that, the importance of an integrated solution for these complexities in the supply chain is integral to the success of any business. So Eric, how is T-Mobile integrating solutions with such complexity in the current day supply chain? So all the interdependencies, how have you guys managed that from a integrated solution standpoint?
Sure. It's a significant challenge. I think I would extend a little bit on Pascal's comment about sort of the interconnectedness of the world today. We primarily sell products that are manufactured by brands that and love, and so understanding how and they share some data with us, right? And so understanding what demand patterns they're seeing, a little bit about what our competitors are doing. We certainly keep an eye on that, and that starts to get to the interconnectedness and the complexity that you're talking about. So I would say we have a significant legacy stack. And sometimes that, from a technology standpoint, and sometimes that has been challenging to us to do the integration that you're talking about. So we've tried to be pretty nimble and agile and open up, cloud solutions, which give us a lot more flexibility for integrating data from different sources. Additionally, while being mindful of security, we try to provide APIs internally to access data in as real-time fashion as we possibly can. Of course, we have a core enterprise data services, but we use that really more for kind of reverse longitudinal analytics, looking back over time and understanding what happened as an attempt to look to the future. For more real-time access, again, we're accessing tools across our enterprise directly and creating these spun up areas where our resources can access that, and then providing them tools as well. That's been one of the other ways that we've done it, is being more open to new solutions, doing proof of concepts with additional vendors, so that we can understand, what the value proposition is. So, my encouragement to our audience would be to think about things like that. And that may require some changes or adjustments, say in your procurement process. So think ahead of, opening up and creating an expectation that I'm going to do an NDA. I know I'm going to share some data with an outside partner or vendor. And then I want to do a limited scope engagement. With a big company like T-Mobile, and I'm sure many big companies out there, dating and getting married to a new vendor is a significant and long process. But again, think of a proof of concept as a date, not getting married. And so create those mechanisms ahead of time that give you the flexibility to, get a little bit closer to the value proposition and test it out a little bit. And so that's been one of the tactics that we have tried to use.
And Herman, how can these integrated solutions be used to a firm's advantage, I guess, when Ortec is providing these integrated solutions in terms of predictive analytics? I know you talked a little bit about cost to serve and looking at the past of the data set, but what can you do to use integrated solutions to look toward the future from a predictive aspect?
Yeah, sure. And to get first a little bit back on that integration, I think technically we are at the point that integration is fairly easy. Eric mentioned the cloud solutions. You can quite easily connect systems to each other. But of course, being really data-driven as an organization and have a data-driven culture starts at the top. So you need to have the right commitment from the board and from the executives to really adopt this data-driven mechanism throughout your organization. I think that's important to realize. And one part of that is, for instance, continuously improving the quality of the data that you have. The risk is that you are analyzing so much data because you can connect from all the data sources that are out there. But yeah, what exactly do you want to focus on? So you need specialists, data analysts, data scientists in your organization, or working with partners who have those skill sets to lead the way. About the predictive analytics, I think it's important to realize that predictive analytics at itself will not bring too much value. It helps you to understand what you can expect in the future, but you do need also to act on that. So for us as Ortec, with our background of 40 years in automation and optimization, for us it's very important that we always combine this also with powerful algorithms, optimization tools, to with that information that we now can predict better what will happen in the future. Okay, let's make sure that we act on that so that the plan that we have for tomorrow is better than the plan that we had for today. And in that way, you can continuously improve your operations using analytics in an integrated way.
Yeah, if I may, Melissa, just extend on that a little bit. Achieving good things with new tools and these much more sophisticated technologies and solutions that are out there requires several elements. First there's the vision and the awareness and the understanding, the art of the possible. A catchphrase of mine is that Eskimos don't know to ask for pizza. If you've never had pizza, you don't know how awesome it is. And so, doing your research and understanding what's out there in the industry and how it can benefit you is the first thing. Secondly, you have to have the tool that gives you the outcome, the result, and then the talent to leverage it. As I mentioned, we have actually shifted our talent in the last 18 to 24 months by adding a significant data science capability. And I'm super pleased we were able to do that. We get great value out of it. But a solution for that, if you haven't done it, and Herman perhaps can speak to this, is sometimes the tool comes bundled with the operator of the tool. So solution providers can help with that. And then the last component, which is the very good point that Herman just made, is actually doing something with it. And I would share transparently, that's actually been a little bit of a challenge for us. We've pulled this data out, we've done cool things with it, but then getting it back into, again, a moderately antiquated legacy stack so that it actually executes on these new patterns that we want to adopt is a little bit challenging. For us at the moment, there's definitely some manual components in there, but similar to my advice about being prepared to do a proof of concept, think about the ways that you will actually execute on the results of the data science and what you get out of it. Again, in a proof of concept, perfectly fine to be manual, but as you want to scale it, again, you have to sort of get ahead of thinking about how do you actually take advantage of the insights and get them into your solutions so that you can get the benefit that you've been seeking.
Pascal, anything to add there from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I'm following two smart people, so I'm always put in the position where I have to add something to what they have already covered. But let me try to summarize a little bit what I think both Eric and Herman have said. So the first thing that you want is integrated data. And I think this is improving the situational awareness. And one of the things which is nice now is that the world is more and more integrated. You work in a port now, the containers are instrumented, you know where they are coming from, where they're going. So it's something that we didn't have 10 years ago. So you want integrated data across the entire organization, and you have to have the global system level view of everything. Then you need to do integrated analytics. You want to actually understand what the data is telling you. So I always tell my team, so let's first look what the data tells us. Because people are building models, but they don't really understand what the data is. I think it's really important to look at the data in addition to the models. So that's the second step. And then the third step, and we alluded to that, is integrated prediction. So you don't want to do prediction in isolation. You want to do prediction about your demand, your suppliers, your workforce, and so on. So you want, again, a kind of an integrated prediction of what you can do at a particular point in time. And so those predictions, they have to be done jointly in a sense. So that's one of the things that we discover. It's very important that you actually align the various predictions. You predict the entire system. And then it's integrated decision making. And I think this is one of the areas where we have a lot of possibilities now, because the progress in technology has been substantial. And once again, is to say, hey, I'm not going to solve this particular optimization problem on its own. I want to take these other parts of my organization and see the impact of that, because you can over-optimize the part, but then down the line, you don't get the downstream, you don't get the effects that you want because there is another bottleneck. And so integrating different optimization, problems now is something that you can do because the technology is ready. It was not ready like 10 years ago. And so I think, having all these levels of integrations is, I think, how you can actually solve many of the problems that we are talking about.
That's great. Yeah, I think all of those points combined are saying, a similar story and from three different perspectives. And that's what's great about having those different perspectives. So looking at decision automation. So we've talked about what data to look at. Then we talked about the integrated solutions and how to use it for predictive analytics. Now let's talk about the decisions, like you all have pointed out, about what do we do with this data. And so given the two prior topics, how are firms overlaying automation tools for enhanced decision making? So anybody want to take that? I know, Pascal, you've had to go third. Would you like to go first on this one?
So I think, I like automation for many reasons, but I think this is one of the things that is happening. It's happening in many of the supply chains right now, and it's happening at different levels of the supply chains. And I think this is going to be staying with us for a long time. And it's addressing a lot of the shortages in workers, in drivers, in all kinds of aspects of society. People are moving to more sophisticated jobs, and that leaves a lot of the kind of the lower level positions very difficult to fill. And automation is going to bridge that gap to a large extent. And this is inside a warehouse. This is inside, the logistic part. It's a little bit everywhere. And this is interesting because it actually allows the system to think differently. There are fewer restrictions. You can have automations that the automation can do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise, but it also raises a lot of challenges, synchronization, and so on. So it allows you to actually rethink also a little bit how your supply chain is working. So I think automation is a great opportunity. It's not going to come in one day. That it will take time, and it will appear piecewise a different part of your supply chains. But it's here to stay because we have a shortage of workers for some of these, for the things that we want to automate, and it's a great opportunity to actually get more efficiencies and more resiliency inside the supply chains.
I agree with what Pascal says. I think there is a significant change management aspect to this, however, that can't be ignored. From a practical standpoint, sometimes it can be very challenging. What we are finding successful is that we kind of start in some areas, as he indicates, that are much more low value, and let the business understand how that works. I think we are not yet at the tipping point where these are really catching on. It also goes back a little bit to the Eskimos don't know to ask for pizza. They're choosing to slough off things that they don't want to do, but there are many, many opportunities where automation could be applied that is not recognized yet. So again, I think the research and understanding the art of the possible, really looking at what is practically happening in the industry, and then determining whether or not those could be practical or useful to your organization, is a thing that we as leaders can do, and it does take the investment of time to keep abreast of that. So again, we're seeing it in smaller areas, not quite at the scale that I can see us getting to in the next few years. And sometimes it's either a crisis like COVID, or a significant event. We're actually looking at replacing our ERP in the coming years. And so I'm hoping that we can leverage that event to really stair-step our use of automation, and free up the knowledge workers to do more useful things.
And Herman, are you seeing that at Ortec where firms are comfortable using this type of automation yet, or is it still the human element still being relied upon, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we have been basically in automation for 40 years. Of course, it's not automating the complete organization, but automating, for instance, the planning process at an organization. So I'm very familiar with the benefits and also the challenges that this automation bringing. And Eric brought up a very good point, I think, about the change management. Which is indeed, for instance, if you do route optimization, then you can maybe mathematically prove that one route is shorter, better, more efficient than another route, but the driver still has to drive the new route, and maybe he or she doesn't want to drive that new route because he or she liked the other one better. So there are a lot of hurdles to overcome. The same thing that we do a lot in load building. When we make the ideal pallet or the ideal calculation how boxes or produce should go into a truck, you still have to also make sure that it's practically possible. The warehouse is equipped to actually do it in that way that we calculate it. What is, I think, changing currently is the part where automation in the past was also a bit scary. Like, maybe people will lose their job because we automate something. That almost has turned around into a requirement. Like, we don't have people anymore, so please automate this job for me, because otherwise we can't do that anymore. I see organizations are comfortable with using automation, not to let go completely. And I personally think that's actually a good thing. So I think supervision is needed, is important in a supply chain. You cannot just let one system do it all for you. I think what is also important is that, I mean, use the systems, and we are of course mostly in software, but use the system where it is good at and where it is better in than human beings. So if you look at calculation power, solving a very complex puzzle where maybe, I don't know, 500 trucks are on the road with 100,000 customers, a human being might be able to solve that problem, but that takes weeks to make a good solution, and the computer can maybe do that in 5 minutes. So use that power, better decisions, faster decisions, and then you see that the organizations who are able to adapt to that, and yeah, indeed, if you have an urgency like replacing an existing system, that's often a good trigger to get there. But we see when organizations have adapted to a more automated way of working, then you get some kind of rest in the organization. Before we implement our solutions, you come to a planning department of a big retailer or a big logistics organization, and it's often very hectic. People are working long hours until late in the night to get a planning finalized and send it over to the warehouse so that they can load the trucks. After we are done with implementing and you come to the same organization, you normally see that it's much more quiet, and actually people have time to think of continuous improvement, to think of more strategic aspects of their job, and to really do their job better, because automation is taking over all the day-to-day operations. So that's in short, or maybe longer, my take on this topic.
Pascal, anything to add from your perspective, or what are the risks if, like to Eric's point with change management, if organizations don't go the decision automation route, and what risk can you see with them not doing it?
No, I completely agree with what Eric is saying, that there is a significant issue in managing automation and the culture inside the organization. I think what we try to do in general is to try to also understand what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. So when you try to automate or optimize, you are trying to take this change management issue proactively and saying, hey, I'm restricting what I do based on these particular constraints. So Herman was also talking about the drivers and so on. So we had experience with that as well, and we had a highly optimal solutions, but then the driver doesn't do what she or he needs to do. And so typically this is about training, making people understand what needs to be done. And I think very good supervision. We build tools so that people can manage their logistics system, their supply chain. They see what is happening on the floor. And you really need good people to do that, people with a system level understanding of what the system does. And that's what we're also building. I think it's not like you automate everything and then, the system run on its own. You always have, people in the loop. And that's one of the things that I wanted to mention. So human in the loop is going to be extremely important, because you can actually see what the system is doing and adjust what needs to be done. It's not like you're going to automate everything. You need these dashboards that are going to say, hey, this is what is happening. And you get insight from this dashboard of what is working, what is not working. And there are definitely things where humans are much better than, whatever we can put, as a technology solutions right now. And so I think the risk management is a very strong issue. The way I've been trying to do this in the past has been basically education and telling people what the system is going to look like, where we need humans, where they're better than computers, software solution, and so on. But it's absolutely a critical aspect of this, explaining, getting people on board, community engagement. This is all very important. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad Eric made that point, because sometimes we focus too much on the technology and not the human factors that are critically important.
Yeah, I think in a retail situation, especially a fashion retailer, this is where art meets science. If you're a merchant and you are, predicting what's going to sell, there is certainly the data component that tells you things. But then there is the human factor. So, I think one of the examples is always Steve Jobs and the iPhone. Data didn't tell him to do that. People didn't know to ask for it. Again, it's that I don't know what pizza is. So, there is still the human aspect, but then leveraging these new tools, technologies, and, methods of leveraging big data give you the insights. So I think there will be an evolution over time. At first, the data tells me to do something, and I'm, the experienced person. I may get in there and meddle with it, and put my gut instinct in versus exclusively letting the data go. But I think over time, as the results begin to speak for themselves, then we will see further adoption and further demand and leveraging of these solutions. But to Pascal's point, again, there's always the iPhone. There's always going to be the human aspect that is required to get the very best solution at the end of the day.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. The intuition, the human creativeness, you don't want to lose. That's true for creating new things and new automated systems. But I think also an important aspect is to keep let's say, the tribal knowledge of your operations in your team. Of course, when you create a new system, you try to put all the tribal knowledge into your algorithms, into your data science, so that and the machine learning makes the decision for you based on the examples from the past. But what is a risk that over time the system is doing that so well that actually the tribal knowledge in your team is not there anymore, and that the system has taken over. So I think it's important for new systems to keep the human supervision, but also to stay critical on, okay, do I still understand my own business and my own operations?
Yeah, and with that said, so the final topic was omnichannel capabilities. And Eric, you probably have the most experience from a retail perspective about these omnichannel capabilities, but using data analytics and predictive analytics and decision automation for these buy online, pick up in store, how does it complicate those decisions? And what has T-Mobile done to sort of change the way they look at the data, they make decisions based on omnichannel?
Yeah, no, appreciate that. So omnichannel, or as we like to think of it, unified commerce. We have so many different ways that our customers can interact with us. You can call 611 on your phone and get a team of experts, which is our care team, and they can do so many things for you, including get you devices or accessories and help you with your warranty exchange, et cetera. You can come into the stores and do it. You can go through our web channels. So there's a number of different touch points. And our objective is that you have a unified experience. So you could start your shopping, for example, online, come into the store, and we can access that cart and see what you had selected before. Maybe you've made a different decision in the store on one item, but you want to keep the other two items that you put in your cart. So we're trying to make it where our customers don't have to rebuild that. This adds, as you can imagine, a significant amount of complexity. Starting at how we think about our inventory, and this is common for retailers. You would have pools by channel, and they were pretty dedicated. And if you were somewhat sophisticated and nimble, you had the ability to maybe share between channels when demand wasn't quite as high in one place as another, or if you were seeing more value out of a certain channel and you're constrained across the board, perhaps you would shift there. And then as tools became more sophisticated, you look at demand patterns, store clustering, demographics in those stores, and then you would do different things with different kinds or classes of products. This all becomes a super complex map. Now you overlay a completely new demand pattern, which we're just beginning to experience. We are admittedly late to the buy online, pick up in store game. And it really requires now these tools, the talent that we've been talking about, and the capabilities to understand what's going to happen and make sure that you're doing your best to optimize a very complex situation where you want to not over position your inventory, yet still meet customer demand where you think it's going to be, react to changes in situations like COVID, and then have ultimate flexibility with your inventory. So we're seeing that, and we have in the future intent to do same day delivery. So as part of our brand promise, we really want you to have what you want, where you want, when you want it. And if it's most convenient for you, say working at home and you've dropped your phone and cracked the screen, we all know how important it is to have that, right? And so if it's best to get it delivered to you within the hour, we want to do that too. So imagine laying that new, very difficult to predict demand model on top of what has, over time built up to be super complex. And we're still learning and thinking about ways to deal with that. There's many levers that you can pull. The economic factor, which affects how that demand is going to be realized. If that's a free service, well, you're probably going to have more demand for it than, say, if you charge only what it costs you to offer that service, or if you treat it as a premium service, there's yet a different demand pattern, right? And so all of that gets into sophisticated ways that you engage your customer that then come back to your supply chain, how you think about where you put your inventory, and then how you manage it in the moment. Additionally, it's going to affect your network design. We're really thinking hard about that right now as we look at buy online, pick up in store, as well as same day delivery. Our network today is pretty simple: one central forward distribution center and 7,700 or so retail outlets. As we get to a same day delivery demand, we intend to build a secondary network, more local. There's a piece of research out there that says with, I think it's 11 different locations in the United States, you can cover 80 or 85% of the population for same day delivery. So if you if you have some locations positioned there, call them local distribution centers, what we believe that's going to permit us to do is reduce our inventory in stores, be able to do same day replenishment to stores as that is, demand is realized there, whether it's buy online, pick up in store or actual, foot traffic, as well as then respond to the demand for same day delivery. So, we see our inventory level dropping in our forward DC, possibly dropping in stores and rising up a little bit in this new distribution network that we intend to build. And we expect higher inventory productivity and flow. But again, as you can imagine, that's going to require both the talent and the tools to manage that on a real-time basis.
Herman, anything to add with your experience with other clients that you've seen managing this complexity of omnichannel capabilities?
Yeah, we work with a lot of retailers around the world, a lot of food retailers, but also other type of retailers. And what Eric described is of course very actual in many of those organizations. Everybody is looking at home delivery, pick up in the store, click and collect, all these different models, and how do I organize that? What we focus mostly on is, let's call it shaping the customer demand, because Eric mentioned already, maybe we need to have a 1 hour delivery, maybe a same day delivery. What is the cost of that? What's the cost of that for our supply chain? In the food retail, there is a lot of movement in appointment scheduling. So let the customer choose a certain time on which they get the products delivered at their home. And we link that directly with the real-time data that we collect from the field. So we know when a certain delivery truck will be in a certain geographical area. So if somebody from the geographical area wants their products delivered in a time that the truck is there anyway, then of course we can offer that, or the retailers can offer that free of charge or for a very attractive price. Whereas if you want a time slot that where there is nobody in the geographical area, you can ask more money for it, or maybe don't even propose it in the first place. So in that way, you can shape the customer demand to something that actually matches your supply chain and your logistics and reduces the overall cost, and also avoid that everybody wants their groceries to be delivered between 6 and 7 p.m. on Friday evening, because that's what will happen if you leave it wide open, of course. And what we also see there in that field is that money may not be the most effective way to steer this. So you see that, for instance, if you present alternative delivery windows as a greener alternative, so it's maybe the same price, but it's better for the environment, that some people are more triggered by that than by the fact that it is $2 cheaper. So there's all kind of things going on in that area to look what is the best way to make it as efficient as possible. But in the end, shaping this customer demand, making sure that it is spread more or less evenly over the week and not all in one peak moment, that of course also has a direct positive effect on the inventory management.
Pascal, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, most of the important points have been made, but I think I want to just talk about the transition which is happening now. So one of the things that is happening is that we understand customers much better because of all these channels and mode of interaction. So that's an opportunity. I view that, although it introduces complexity in, you know, collecting all the information and so on, is really an opportunity to understand the customers better. And so the next step, and I think, you know, Herman and Eric have already alluded to that, is you do personalized interaction. So you know who your customer is, and therefore you can interact with her in a personalized fashion. You know what she expects. And then the third thing, and I think, you know, the word has been used by Herman or Eric, I don't know, it's shaping the engagement. At this particular point, you can actually do something that will shape the customer behavior such that we present the right product to the customers. We try to do the best product that we have available at a particular point. And so that is a very interesting topic. And there are a lot of opportunities there for improving what is basically the state of the art right now. It's how you engage with the customers, how you actually influence the customers toward what you believe she wants. And I think that's a very interesting topic where there are all kinds of signals that we can use now, and how these signals are affecting the customer behavior is still not completely well understood. We understand it at a small scale, but when you start moving at the group level, it's much more complicated. And so you have these effects on people and these social effects, because we live in a very different generation now, where people are interacting very differently with everything. So we have to understand how people react to those things. So I think there is a tremendous opportunity to shape the customer engagement such that we actually, understand better what the customer wants, and we offer what the customer really wants. So I think for me, that's a tremendous opportunity.
We will move on to Q&A. I promised to leave a couple minutes for Q&A. So if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A chat down at the bottom of your screen. We do have one question. What's the next disruption your respective teams are preparing for? Anything that was perhaps downplayed, but now is getting more attention because of COVID? How are you balancing being prepared for that versus the normal? Think holding more inventory to migrate shortages versus being capital efficient. Anyone want to take that one?
Well, that's a great question. Couple of things that we're thinking about. One is with the impact that COVID has had on chip availability. We're seeing significant shortages in industry for, one of the main products that we carry, right? So, preparing ourselves to deal with additionally constrained inventory positions and trying to offer new services to customers, to, again, get as close to the demand pattern as we possibly can is one thing we're thinking about. Additionally, we're thinking about flexibility in how we allocate and look at our inventory pools, permitting us, say, between our different brands. So, we have our Metro brand and our Magenta brand, kind of the flagship brand. And so being able to move inventory between those, which, again, it may be common for others out there, but that was a bit of a challenge for us before. So that type of resiliency and thinking more about resiliency in general, right? So I think, what we all experienced and are experiencing in our everyday lives, when COVID first happened and grocery stores ran out of certain staples, toilet paper especially, we built supply chains for consistency. We did not build them for resiliency. So thinking about what that means, because you can't necessarily predict, what might happen, has been one of the things that we've really been trying to think about. And so whether it's people and teams or tools or processes that let us look at resiliency in addition to, responsiveness is something that we've got on our minds.
I think the product shortages have really triggered a lot of companies to not only focus on your own closed supply chain, but actually start predicting the supplies you get from your suppliers. And that is something that before that was not really an issue, because you always would get your supplies in time. So that whole field is and will continue, I think, to get a lot of attention. I think what's also important, if we look at future trends and future disruptions, is the open view and the outside-in thinking. So, for instance, collaborations with Georgia Tech, with universities, but also with startups. I think that's important to keep an open view on, okay, what's happening, because sometimes our customers are mostly Fortune 500 customers. They're not often and not always the first one to adapt to a new change, while the smaller ones or academic research sometimes does give that insight.
So let me build on this. It's a great question. So I think both Eric and Herman have mentioned resiliency, and I think this is what's going to happen with many companies. They will start building their supply chain with resiliency in mind, directly. So if you think about, for instance, the power grid is built with resiliency from the beginning. You don't want single point of failures, and as a result, you have electricity 99.9999% of the time. You want your supply chain to behave that way. Now, it may be a little bit more difficult because you have many moving parts, different stakeholders, but I think that's where all the companies are going to start thinking about, can I avoid the situations I have been into because of COVID? I think the other revolution that's going to happen once COVID is, completely under control is going to be the green revolutions. People will want supply chains that are much greener. And so customers are going to look into that. They are going to see, can you actually do the same thing with, only 2 or 3% additional cost, but no, you have a green operation. So I think, there is an entire generation of young people who will look into that, and they are already looking into that. And so I think a lot of companies are going to look into that as well. It's not right now because we have too many pressing issues to solve, but it's going to come. And people have to prepare for that as well. And it's an interesting topic because you optimize differently when you do that. But it will have benefits in the long term as well, globally, for the supply chain. So
I do see that already happening, by the way, and I agree it will have more focus, but the sustainability is a big topic. I mean, nowadays, almost every company that is looking to buy a new system will have some sustainability questions in their RFI or RFP. We also calculate the CO2 emissions saved by more favorable planning, for instance. So it is a topic that becomes more and more relevant. We see it, for instance, with we're quite big in Europe. Our customers in Scandinavia, they are really much focused on that part. How green is your solution? How much more do we reduce our carbon footprint by using your solution? So I totally agree that that is an important aspect and will only continue to become more important.
We have another question. Sounds like as companies balance systems, technology, and people, there may be a skill gap. Has your recruiting priorities or skill sets changed over time, over the last couple of years? How can folks many years into their career focus? So the question, I think, Eric, you hit on it at the beginning of the call about resources and the change that T-Mobile made related to resources and the gap. So anything you wanted to add there?
Well, I would double down on my earlier comments and directly respond to the question that says, yes, we have changed our recruiting priorities. It has shaped and changed some of our organizations. We didn't really have a big sophisticated data science group. And, so we, again, invested in that talent that falls in our planning and strategy group that helps get those insights and, again, think ahead about things like that secondary network I mentioned that we envision designing. Additionally, in the technology space, it has changed our recruiting requirements for more junior and mid-level engineers, say, making sure that they are familiar with cloud solutions, programming languages, and big data concepts. Because as a technology partner, I have to understand the intent of my business partner and what it is they're trying to do, so that I can make sure that I provide them the tools to do what it is they need to do. To the component of the question around, how can you continue to evolve your skills? I think starting here with an event like this and just hearing a little bit about what companies are doing and what's out there, I encourage you to look at training available perhaps within your organization, online courses, seminars, et cetera. And then I have seen a number of, online degrees and 1- and 2-year degrees come up in this space. So if you have an interest, certainly would encourage you to take a look at those. Figure out, again, how can you partner with a vendor, perhaps do a proof of concept, understand the art of the possible, and extend on that as you think about being able to bring that value to your organization. And then it will naturally grow as you continue to extend that.
And as a matter of fact, if I may, we have a supply chain analytics course developed together with Georgia Tech, which is held twice per year. So that is especially aiming for people who are already further in their career. They are already managing an operation or already became a specialist on some field, but want to deep dive into data analytics and data science.
So let me add one more thing. I think also as you know, the education field has been changing a lot as well, and with online education becoming more and more prominent. And so for people who are a little bit more advanced in their careers, there are very successful professional master's programs now that are really dedicated to actually bringing new skills to people later in their careers. And so for instance, the Master of Analytics at Georgia Tech is extremely successful. A lot of people are taking those courses and those master programs because they want to get these skills that Eric is talking about. And so these are and the topic is actually very enjoyable. You really work with data, you really work with decision making and forecasting and so on. And so I think these are very interesting master programs that, once again, we couldn't have really done like 20 years ago or 15 years ago. This is done in a much more professional and systematic way right now. And so this is really an opportunity for the workforce to get additional training. And so this is something that I expect is going to be more and more prominent because the field is changing very quickly. Technology is evolving faster, and you will need to actually take this training. And I think, it's very interesting because what I see is that different countries are reacting very differently to those opportunities. Some take this training because they feel they need to do it. Other people are just engaging it because they think this is great, this is cool, and I want to do that. So it's very interesting. There are very interesting cultural aspects to those as well. But there are tremendous opportunity to build up those skills, and obviously it's very important to do so.
I don't see any additional questions. Does any of the panelists want to add anything as we close out? I know, Jessica, you maybe have a couple words you wanted to say related to TAG, but anything from the panelists? We certainly appreciate you taking the time.
Melissa, I did see another question come through.
Okay. Hi, I'm a student at Gwinnett Tech and I'm studying industrial engineering technology. What career advice do you have for me?
So I'll jump on that one as also an industrial engineer by education with a couple of degrees, my second one from Georgia Tech. Avail yourself of every opportunity. Say yes. Even if you feel like you haven't had the course yet or haven't studied it, look for internships, seek opportunities, continue to attend things like this where you can learn, and just keep your eyes and ears open. And the thing that piques your interest is going to match up with a demand in the marketplace. So just stay engaged. And like I said, make yourself take advantage of any opportunity that you have. Say yes.
Totally agree. And just for the record, many of our new employees and interns are industrial engineers. So a company like Ortec is for instance, a possibility.
I obviously teach in industrial engineering, so so I think you are making a good choice. I think what Eric said, which is very interesting, is to be aware of what the industry is doing, and I think that's very important. So you need to have the academic background, but you also need to be involved with industry, do internships and so on, so that you understand the two sides of the story. I think that's very important, and this is one of the things that Georgia Tech is trying to do, making sure that there are significant internships opportunities for the students such that they understand the foundations, but they also apply them on practical problems. Because you talk to Armin, you talk to Eric, they exactly know how the business is working, and it's much more sophisticated that the case study that we could put in a course. And so you discover all that complexity and how you can use the tools to address it. And I think that's invaluable. That's really invaluable.
Thank you. And again, thank you all for just incredible insight into the topic. Jessica, did you have any final parting words?
Well, first off, thank you, Melissa, Pascal, Eric, and Herman for a delightful conversation during this lunch hour. So we appreciate your expertise, your time, and your experience. Like I said, it's invaluable. I also want to give a big shout out to Ortec, our event sponsor. We truly could not have done this event without you, so we appreciate everything. And thank you, Herman. I also want to give a shout out to the Data Science and Analytics, Supply Chain, Logistics, and Manufacturing Societies who put on this event today. So thank you to those event committees and those chairs. And lastly, to our attendees today. Thank you for spending the time with us. Here at TAG, we appreciate it. This event has been recorded, so definitely you can share it with those that were not able to attend today. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
And thank you, Melissa, for being the master of ceremony here. You did it in an amazing way.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good Thursday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.